Welcome back to Terror and Urban Myths. You know we have some seriously creepy stories lined up for you tonight, the kind that make you check your locks twice and maybe hug your loved ones a little tighter. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and give us a like. It really means a lot to us.
It's always great to have new listeners join the conversation.
So tonight, we're going to dive into those moments.
Yeah.
You know where danger just kind of whispers in your ear? When the ordinary feels menacing and that line between feeling safe and vulnerable gets blurry. Okay. Let's start with a story that's both terrifying and inspiring at the same time. Imagine a 16-year-old girl, barely over 100 pounds, just walking home from a quick trip to the store, taking a shortcut through what seems like a deserted area, when suddenly she comes face to face with a man who intends to hurt her.
It's a reminder that danger can be lurking anywhere, even in places we think are safe.
Now this man, dressed in a business suit, didn't initially set off any alarms. He seemed ordinary, almost blended into the background. But his intentions were anything but ordinary. He grabbed her, overpowering her with this terrifying ease that honestly gave me chills just reading about it.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of how appearances can be deceiving. We often rely on visual cues to assess threats, but sometimes danger can hide in plain sight.
And her rescue came from the most unexpected source. A woman struggling with addiction, living on the fringes of society, saw what was happening, and without hesitation, ran toward the attacker. Her intervention, her willingness to put herself in harm's way, saved that young girl's life.
It really makes you think about what motivates people to intervene in those situations. Is it courage, empathy, a sense of responsibility? Maybe it's a mix of all of those things.
And what's even more remarkable is how the story ends. Years later, that young girl, now a grown woman, helped her rescuer get into rehab.
It's a beautiful example of how even in the darkest situations, a single act of kindness can ripple outward.
So this story, it's just one example of the close calls that people have every day. We hear about them on the news, on social media, and sometimes even within our own circles.
These are the stories that make us question our own safety and vulnerability.
Exactly. And what's really striking is how many of these close calls happen in these ordinary situations.
A walk in the park, a late-night commute, a casual online chat. All of those can quickly turn dangerous.
So let's dive into a few more of these stories. Each one offers a glimpse into the unexpected dangers that can really be lurking anywhere. There's one story that really caught my attention about a woman who was almost tricked into going to a dangerous location by someone pretending to be her sister on social media.
Oh, wow. That's a really good example of how the digital world can be dangerous. Anonymity can be a shield for people with bad intentions.
Right. So this woman got a friend request from someone claiming to be her sister, someone she'd actually never met in person. But the profile seemed real, with pictures and mutual friends, so it was easy to believe.
Yeah, it's a classic case of social engineering. Manipulators use our trust and desire for connection against us.
It's scary how sophisticated they've become. So the impersonator messaged her, inviting her to this dinner party at a park, and the woman was excited about finally meeting her sister. But she also had this nagging unease about meeting a group of strangers in a public setting.
That hesitation is so important. That gut instinct can really save you from a dangerous situation.
You know, it's funny you say that, because weeks later, she Googled the park just out of curiosity and discovered that it was notorious for criminal activity, not exactly a family-friendly gathering spot.
Wow, that's a close call. It just shows you how important it is to verify information online.
Absolutely. Luckily, she was able to connect with her real sister and confirm that it was all a fake. But it's a stark reminder that things aren't always as they seem online.
It emphasizes the need to be cautious about who we connect with online.
Right. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about a story that highlights something called the bystander effect. It's that chilling phenomena where people are less likely to help someone in need when other people are present. This story is about a woman who heard her neighbor being robbed and assaulted, but she didn't intervene because she just assumed it was noise.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. It makes you wonder why we hesitate to act when we sense danger.
I know. She later learned that her neighbor had been tied up at gunpoint and robbed, and the guilt and regret she felt, knowing she could have potentially changed what happened, is something she still carries with her today.
It's a reminder that our inaction can have real consequences.
It really makes you think about those moments when you hear something suspicious, but you hesitate to act.
We need to be more aware of our surroundings and consider what might happen if we don't do anything.
I agree. It's a call to action for all of us.
Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is just pay attention and be there for the people around you.
And sometimes that feeling of danger can hit you even closer to home. You know, a space you usually think of as safe. We get another story from a listener about being trapped on a bus with the guy who was harassing her.
That's unfortunately a common experience for many women, especially when they're traveling alone. That feeling of being trapped and unsafe is very real.
So she was on her way to meet some friends, looking forward to a night out, when this man sits down next to her on an otherwise empty bus. And he starts asking these intrusive questions, making comments about her appearance, even saying things like, "I love you," but in this creepy, possessive way.
It's a classic power play, using words and actions to intimidate and control.
She asked him to leave her alone repeatedly, but he just wouldn't stop. The situation kept escalating, and her anxiety was just through the roof. That feeling of being trapped, knowing you can't escape, must be absolutely terrifying.
You always have the right to feel safe in public. It's important to assert your boundaries, like this woman did.
And in this case, another passenger actually intervened, confronted the harasser, and the situation de-escalated.
That's a good example of how we can all play a role in creating a safer environment. Sometimes it just takes one person to speak up.
Exactly. And speaking of trusting your gut, we received another story that really emphasized how important it is to pay attention to those inner warning signs. This one involved a young woman who was convinced to go on a camping trip with a guy she met online, even though she had this feeling that something wasn't right.
Online dating can be tricky. It's easy to get swept up in the excitement of meeting someone new.
Yeah, she'd been chatting with this guy for hours. He seemed interesting and intelligent and charming, and he quickly suggested they meet up in person. And she agreed, even though a part of her was hesitant.
That speed is a red flag right there. It's important to take things slowly when meeting someone from online.
Right. And as they were planning the trip, more red flags started popping up. He was evasive about his job, claimed he couldn't share details because of some confidentiality agreement. And then he insisted on taking her to this specific campsite that was known for having contaminated soil, which just made her feel even more uneasy.
That sounds like classic manipulation, trying to control the situation and isolate her.
Yeah, it's really disturbing. But she ignored her gut feeling and went on the trip anyway. And during the drive, he just talked about himself nonstop, barely even asked her any questions. And he made some really unsettling comments, bragging about how he pretends to be a Russian soldier torturing people online.
Yikes. That's a major red flag, no matter how charming someone seems.
When they got to the campsite, it was already late and cold, but he refused to set up the tent, said it was too much work, and insisted they sleep in his car. And then he assaulted her in the back seat.
Oh my God. It's a horrible reminder of how quickly things can turn dangerous.
She was terrified and traumatized, but she was afraid to tell anyone what happened. She eventually made it home safely, but the experience obviously left her deeply shaken.
The aftermath of an assault can be incredibly difficult. There's often a lot of shame and guilt and fear.
This story is a stark reminder that we need to trust our instincts, be aware of the signs of manipulation, and never be afraid to say no or walk away from a situation that doesn't feel safe.
It's so important to have open conversations about consent and boundaries and healthy relationships.
Now, let's move on to another story. That really emphasizes the importance of vigilance, even what seem like safe environments. This one involves a man who was followed by a woman while he was on his evening walk. Now, this guy is a tall, athletic guy in his late 20s. But even he felt vulnerable and unnerved by her behavior.
It's a good reminder that anyone can be a target of harassment or stalking, not just women. And it's especially chilling that she kept looking at his arms and face like she was sizing him up.
He said her behavior was just strange and unsettling, almost like she was pretending to be afraid or searching for something in her bag.
That kind of calculated behavior is really disturbing.
He eventually confronted her, yelled at her, "What do you want?" But she didn't say anything, just stared at him intensely. Luckily, a car drove by at that moment, and he was able to walk away.
That quick thinking probably saved him by drawing attention to the situation. He disrupted her plans and created an opportunity to escape.
It's a good reminder that even when we're afraid, we have the power to act and potentially change the outcome of a dangerous situation.
Self-defense training can be incredibly empowering.
These stories are definitely unsettling, but it's important to have these conversations to understand the dangers that are out there.
Absolutely. Ignoring these issues won't make them go away. We can create a safer world by talking about these things and learning from each other's experiences.
It's so easy to get caught up in our routines, and let our guard down. But these stories, they really remind us that danger can be anywhere.
Absolutely. It's all about being aware and paying attention to those little cues that might signal danger. You don't have to live in fear. Just be present and alert to what's going on around you.
Like that story we talked about earlier, about the woman who noticed that man lurking near her car in the parking lot. At first she thought he was just a shadow, but something felt off. And it wasn't until she got a good look at him, naked, covered in mud with those wild eyes, that she realized how much danger she was really in.
Oh, that one gave me chills. It just shows you how important it is to trust your gut instincts.
Thankfully, she was able to get away safely, but it's a reminder that even in places we think are safe, we need to be vigilant.
Danger doesn't always come with a flashing sign. It can be subtle, easy to miss. So pay attention to those feelings of unease, even if you can't explain why you feel that way.
Let's talk about stalking for a minute. We got a story from a listener about a guy she briefly knew from college. They had a casual friendship. But after the semester ended, his behavior changed. He started showing up at her house, following her to places she'd posted about on social media, even taking pictures of her.
That's scary how stalking can escalate from something that seems harmless to outright harassment.
She called the police several times. But he was always careful not to actually break any laws, so it was hard for them to do anything.
Stalking is a serious crime, and it's important to document everything. Tell someone you trust, and contact law enforcement.
These stories are unsettling, but I think they offer valuable lessons about personal safety. They remind us that danger can be anywhere, and we need to be aware, prepared, and trust our gut.
You're right. Your safety is the most important thing. Never hesitate to prioritize your well-being, even if it means seeming rude or overreacting. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
I couldn't agree more. And if you see someone in a dangerous situation, don't be afraid to step in or call for help.
We all have a responsibility to look out for each other.
That's all the time we have for Terror and Urban Myths today. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and give us a like. And be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.